I'm Samo Kutin from Slovenia. I play hurdy-gurdy in two different variations. One normal, the traditional way, and the other without the keyboard with preparations, and attached to some self-made acoustic resonators, and using amplification as well. And today I used one self-made bass harp as well.
I'm Keller from Switzerland. I play the guitar, and tonight I played a special feedbacking guitar.
This is a very Japanese way, I think. I'm Rieko Okuda. Yeah. I played tonight was synthesizer and sampler. Yeah, it could be kind of special, but it really not. So good one though. Yeah.
My name is Florian. Tonight I played the saxophone, the alto saxophone. It's probably the most common instrument now on stage. Even though I used to play also like self-made instruments sometimes, but today I try to focus on the alto saxophone and try to make it sound not so common after all.
Very special.
Yeah.
Because it's something special.
Yeah, somehow. Today I also attended and I do voice and things that sound. So I'm Georg Wissa. So let's talk about you all did tonight. Was this fully improvised what you did, or did you have some prepared concepts? You can talk for us.
Yeah, it was fully improvised, of course. But it's hard to say what is fully improvised, since we improvise a lot. So for me, for example, tuning harp before the concert, it's already fixing it a lot, It's not, it doesn't allow to be tuned in some other tuning. And also playing hurdy-gurdy in prepared ways for many years, it becomes you already know what will come out if you do something, if you do other things. So it's hard to say if it's completely improvised. It's also known at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, I guess for us it's the same. It's exactly the same. Our set was fully improvised. It was actually only, I think, the second time that we played as a trio. We played 2 days ago in Vienna.
Same for you. We too.
Oh, yeah.
So this is second night.
It's also our second night. Yeah.
Yeah, and but I mean, of course, we've been knowing each other quite well, actually, right? Each of us.
Yeah, I mean we play together in different contexts also.
In different
not in the studio,
studio, different bands, constellations.
Yeah, actually, the impact tonight was we have a duo very long time. That's Ohio Valley Wrestling.
Yeah,
I
no
don't
one
know
knows
how.
why, but somehow it's there.
Yeah, somehow it happened like this, and then we as a duo and featuring Keller actually. So maybe tonight was not improvised. No, I think it's anyhow improvised. Because also our duo is usually I play the piano,
The acoustic piano, yeah.
and
I usually play the tuba contrabass saxophone, so it's very different actually.
yeah, and that's
Much more like maximalism. I'd say.
very maximalism, but at the same time it's going very slow development and all that stuff. So that's was improvised tonight.
Yeah,
At
for
the
me, it was
end,
quite,
yes.
today was quite interesting to work on, like, at least that was my feeling, to work on ideas that we had like 2 nights ago. In a way, they appeared again, and we sort of like reworked on them, which was very satisfying to me actually, because I see the development immediately.
Same for me, yeah.
How much did you think tonight?
Think.
Think about what you're doing now.
5%.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very precise, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it just came up. It's pretty clear to me that it was 5%. Like speaking in 5% steps, you know, it wasn't 10. It's maybe somewhere in between. But actually, it was a lot of like body intuition. Is that a term actually? Intuition, body intuition, and then at some points I was like, I actually thought like, okay, shall this go like on? It's more like decision making than active decision making for me at least, but not in a way of like composing it, like for like future steps or so, but rather thinking about, is this in the right direction, or do I need to like force my body to do something else basically?
For me, today was beginning. Maybe 24%, and at the end is maybe 0.2%. It's just because of I also like beginning. Oh, what to do? Starting like what's the mood of us somehow, or what's the mood of the also audience, what is this space about, and I want to hear myself, so that moment I'm using a lot of brain, I guess, somehow thinking. But once I started, then of course there's interaction between them, and I still have so much palette, also enthusiastic about my sounds and everything, and spacing and everything. So I have I can do this, it would be great, what do I do? So I think about it, but later, because also this is kind of new synthesizer for me, and the problem is I still not so much in control actually. It's very depending on the touch, it just changes the sound actually. So sometimes like, is it coming me? Am I doing or am I not doing? Or like, it's at some point that I'm not knowing, unfortunately. So then I just stop thinking, just do. That was tonight.
Well, I guess by thinking you mean like making actual plans instead of being in the moment, right?
Yeah, somehow, yeah. Or
Conscious
stepping out for a moment.
decisions.
Yes, consciousness.
Yeah, okay. I would say like I was maybe like 85% in the moment and 15% planning consciously. But that's a secret.
You already
Too late.
revealed.
Yeah, I don't know in percents, but it was one of these improvisations. I felt that I don't need so much to think. A bit, of course, yeah, while changing instruments, or why to change the instruments at all, or so it's the easiest to play just one thing, and then you don't need to think about changes, but it's I think I mean, I really enjoyed. So it was like very floaty. So I have no idea. I think I wasn't thinking a lot, I would say, because if there is problematic improvisation, you need to think a lot, and if it's on the flow, in the improvisation in the flow, then you don't need to think a lot.
Maybe I also have to talk about this.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, I have always a fighting with thinking, and I want. I now the thinking is getting a friend of mine, yeah. But normally the thinking is a kind of guy who destroys things. So for me it's this kind, when something is working too good, the thinking is coming and says kill it, yeah? Because it's getting boring. And that's within improvisation I have the possibility that I don't know who this is, this guy always saying, or this woman, I don't know, this voice. Oh, it's getting boring, kill it. And I cope, we are now better friends, that I don't have to destroy everything. But I'm fighting with the thinking, but we are getting friends, yeah, somehow. And that's the next question. Are you perfectionistic?
No, I don't think so. I mean, which sense of?
Let's say, my question is coming from this, if you're doing some kind of prepared things, you already know, you have something in your mind, how it should work out. That's maybe if you do something with scored things. And for me, very often this kind of freedom of what is free, of improvising, just to let it something out, or is a good possibility to not to become very perfectionistic, because you can't do things perfect within improvisation. Or maybe I'm wrong.
Well, at least for me, it's a constant zooming in and out when I'm playing music. So sometimes it's very nice to get really into like little things and details, but then it's also important to step back or zoom out. So I think we have to, or at least for me, I try to have some sort of balance with, yeah.
And do you think you have to master your instrument, or is it often very, as you said, very comfortable to have an instrument you don't know already very well for improvisation?
For me, it's horrible. Actually,
This is also for me a horrible.
Course, that could, sorry, that could be very charming if you hear an artist fighting an instrument that she or he doesn't really know yet that well yet. But for me, I try to really. I mean, for me, it's more fun to focus on something and work on an instrument, and then, yeah, after time, come up with new ideas that maybe have some depth, or at least to me. So.
Yeah, I agree with everything they said, and at the same time, because I was horrible with playing instruments in past, and still sometimes, if I'm using some new instrument, but at the same time I really like these unpredictable moments that appears, or if something change on the instrument. I mean, it's not. I'm also using instruments like this that you cannot really control them. So when this appears, and sometimes it appears in a very good way, I think, yeah, this I find actually like ideal, like ideal thing, or like, you know. It's not always working, of course, but at the same time, also these mistakes and these unknown things can be perfectionism for me, as I see it.
I think I'm on your team there, but I think, like for me personally, I find it necessary to sort of master it to a certain degree, to master the instrument to a certain degree, to actually be a bit more adventurous in this exact field, like on the border of my possibilities, basically, and to really challenge myself to go out of this like safe zone in a way. But then, the larger the safe zone is, sort of, the more interesting the unsafe part gets for me. And also, I feel that when I see people on stage, also, like, when you see, like, they sort of master the instrument and still they find some part that is new to them and they really explore that very intuitively. I like that very much, really.
That's right. But I also like it to show mistakes and that you get this kind of atmosphere, it's falling down. That this kind of moment where you lose the control and it could be very shaming. I love this playing with going into moments where you have this kind of being ashamed being outside. But in these moments, for me, for example, it's like more like life, or for me, a kind of focus on a kind of life you normally don't focus in art, or for me, this is kind of really falling on stage. This and yeah, use it really. This being on the edge of ooh. I have this experience when I'm on the audience. I feel ashamed for her or he who is performing and is not coming out. And for me, this not coming out to perform it is very interesting. Although it's very critical because I can't explain it what I exactly mean. But for me, this in improvisation, this gives me a possibility which I don't find in other ways of performing. Yeah, really going on stage, and you really don't know if it will work. Yeah, and it could be very shaming. Yeah.
I hate to be ashamed on the stage. Really, it's the most horrible thing. Probably because of history, because I was a lot. But it's completely different if if something goes wrong wrong. I have no idea what's wrong in improvisation, but still, if you don't. So if something happens that doesn't go with the flow and you are okay with it, so it depends really a lot on the feeling to this event. And if you are not okay with it, so if you think, if I think, when this happens, if I think, oh shit, what now? Then it's really a disaster. So sometimes when things goes wrong, it's the best, and sometimes when things goes wrong, it's the worst for me.
But also very, I think, sometimes it's subjective that I feel like falling, but it's actually not so bad, maybe, or I am doing great on the stage, but it's horrible outside.
Yeah.
But it's not happening so much on that way. But that's why, as you said, that to see from a bit outside to myself that how, but that moment, of course, I mean. Yeah, I like that this unsafe or risky or like falling part, but at the same time I try not to do it on the stage. That's why I want to practice that at home or at the studio first to practice. That's the moment, I think.
Yeah, you're right. But it was a question I raised myself: how to be authentic. I always felt when I was singing quite a lot, and then it felt so perfect, and then I thought, yeah, but they don't know what it took to come there, and so this falling, I got interested really in this destruction somehow. But you're right, it's not fair for the audience maybe sometimes. But I think in improvisation you get a kind of, it's like a piece of art when you give it a kind of framing, then it becomes also this like development. It becomes, oh yeah, this is something, there is something, yeah. And very often for me it's a kind of bringing something of life. I see people, they can't cope their life, for example. Sure, there are the guys or the women, they are doing everything perfectly, but there are a lot of people, they are falling, and they are fighting, but they fall, and for me this is also interesting to show it.
I just I wanted to say something. I forgot it.
You are too quick.
I'm sorry.
I remember that then it comes to the sinking point, I feel like. Because if I am... sinking is what? Is also that talking like what music is or what improvisation is, but for me at least, if we're going with the moment of who I am, and if I am falling or I'm not falling, it's not, or am I perfectionist or anything, it's not the point. It's more of, am I doing like playing or anything myself that being satisfied, and the moment I feel like this is what I really think, that's what I want to do, or that's probably what transmits to outside. I feel that the feeling of it comes outside. So there's no fall, there's no up, it's just the moment myself, I think.
Yeah, thank you. Maybe it's too complicated.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
probably a bit, yeah.
What I say, you're right, yeah.
No, but
Yeah.
everything connects.
Yeah.
I feel like all like layered interaction,
Yeah.
and all at the moment what's the most strongest working to you, you will feel it probably, but otherwise I think everything happening at the same time, so I cannot really pick one. I think.
Yeah.
Sorry, next question maybe. Sorry.
No,
That
it's-
was a boring answer.
No, it was a complicated question. It was, you're completely right. It's easier than this what I am talking about. But very often I think about this, yeah. What to say? Very often I ask the things like, I saw you're playing, you work a lot of, you're not afraid of having moments where it's quiet. That was nice, yeah. Did you really have to say, let's try, or
No, we didn't agree in the first place. But I think sometimes the music just like leads there, and then it's the question like if everyone's okay with that. And in our case, I think everyone was, really. And sometimes it's this this ego-driven aspect of like, cool, there's an empty space now. I can do finally I can do my stuff, And I think that didn't happen, and this is a good thing.
I like
Because
it.
I see that quite often, and I also, sometimes you experience that with people. Not only in improvised music, by the way, like basically everywhere.
Yeah, I like this. Maybe, yeah. I thought about this while we were doing this. Then I thought, let's go on. I was not much thinking. Another question. Today is not so easy. Yeah, another question.
You are shaking.
Yeah, that's the thing.
No, it's okay.
Yeah.
Shake.
Yeah, the shake now.
If you think you have a lot of things you want to say, but there's just one performance. Isn't it nice? Just I have these problems. I think I have so much to show. I have to show this, this, and this, and then the performance doesn't need it. And do you know this kind of feeling? It's very often very funny. I just have to do not just to do this. It happens that I just use this and it was fine. It was okay. But very often you get this feeling, performance, you have to show something. How do you cope with this, or you don't have this?
I think it's the process of getting a mature improviser in the end. Like in the beginning, I had that a lot actually. I play a lot of instruments really. That's sort of my thing. So I collect instruments and I also play a lot. And then it's maybe typical for a saxophone player actually. So you bring like 10 instruments to the session, and then it's sort of like, hey, come on, now I carried all of them. I need to play them also. But it's just like a process, you know. And at some point you realize, okay, this is really it makes no sense really. And then you start like also to differentiate between like bands and projects or stuff, and like find like in this situation, I wouldn't bring specific instruments because I know it doesn't like, it's not working that well. And so I decided now, when I'm touring at least, I just bring one instrument. And I decided this like probably like because you said that before, this is probably the part of composition actually, or the aspect of composition that happens. I decide for a specific instrument. But at the same time I try to also like translate from different instruments and different performances and attitudes towards specific lineups maybe. Try to transpose that into what happened with our trio, for example, and to like translate certain attitudes that maybe like not as loud or not as dense or like different, but it's sort of how you say it still is part of what I play here. You know what I mean? I hope so.
Yeah, I'm always having some new things to show, so it's always this question, yeah. But at the same time, a very good solution is to have different bands, you know, and use things on different bands, different projects. Because it does in improvisation like this, like free improvisation, it doesn't work like, okay, I need to show something and I need to show everything I can do or what I play. But at the same time, like using all these, playing in all these different situations and bands affects all the other situations. So also improvising on one instrument wouldn't be the same without playing in all these different bands, I think, or discovering all these different instruments and sounds.
You had this nice feedback guitar.
Feedbacker, yeah.
Feedbacker.
Yeah.
Do you normally play with this video?
This turned into my main thing over the last 8 years or so.
Okay.
I got this instrument, and we were talking actually about this instrument maybe in 2013, but I got it in 2016. And for the first 4 years or so, I just tried to figure it really out. Actually practice it. And like in the last 4 or 5 years, I think it turned into my main instrument. Mostly playing.
So you feel home with this?
Absolutely, yeah. I love this instrument. It's so much fun to play, I tell you.
How does it work?
Yeah. So it has there's an actual small amplifier built into the instrument. There's a little orange amp built into the instrument, and since the speaker is mounted right underneath the strings, I can go into feedback really easily without necessarily having to play loud. So yeah, that's like the essence of this instrument, like what it makes so special. Plus I have a pickup behind the bridge as well, so I can play with 12 pitches at the same time instead of just 6 that you would get on a normal guitar. And I also do have a big speed tremolo, so I can, there's so many ways for me to bend notes in and out of pitch on this instrument, either with bending with my left hand or using the big speed. So yeah, so many options and so much fun to play this instrument actually. Yeah.
Ah, that's nice. I get this feeling now what you are talking about. It's good to have an instrument where you feel home or you feel familiar. I had this experience with your sounds, for example, what you're doing. I can really fall into it. So for a duo, this is my way of being comfortable. Yeah, and there I can move in. Do you also, if you're today, it sounds in the beginning I thought it was concept. You had the concept because it worked so till the end. You were communicating like tak tak. And do you had also this kind of experience? Because it's the second night and you played the first time. How was this experience?
For me, that's just the magic and mystery of music. So that's a part of it. Why it is actually so beautiful to play this kind of music. So no one really knows why it's happening. I mean, I don't know how it was for you two.
Yeah, I cannot add that much actually. I have this feeling of like feeling at home in a way in music, and in my instrument I like never really have it, to be honest. It's very rare. It's more depending on room acoustics. Sometimes there are rooms that are like really helping you to like express yourself, especially with like reed instruments. I think that's quite common. Sometimes there are rooms, but it's very rare. It's usually like very special churches or so, with a lot of reverb, a lot of room. It's quite rare. Then I feel at home, but more like it feels very comfortable to play. Musically speaking, I try not to feel at home actually, because then I have this feeling of like losing contact a bit, and feeling too comfortable actually makes me, selbstgefällig. What is the English term for selbstgefällig? You enjoy your much to self, you know?
Overconfident.
Yeah, maybe.
Interesting.
Yeah. And I, for me personally, I mean, I cannot speak for others, but for me personally, that's like not a mode I like to play in.
Very interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So I really want to feel this sort of like communication and not, not conflict, but like the interaction really.
You want to say something? No. Because that's interesting. Because I had this problem. I was sometimes too emotional, and in this scene of improvised music, I always had problems that I'm too much in contact with myself. Maybe, as you say, selbstgefällig.
Yeah, this might happen then.
Yeah, maybe
Yeah.
I love abstract things, and then I want to come back because I'm human. I love this switching for me, for example. I had always problems with other that I'm not every time abstract, or this kind of listening just to sounds, making new sounds. I love also to say, when I cut, then it's coming blood out of it, or something. Yeah? It's very banal, yeah? To come back. Yeah? But but I respect, I love it, because it's very challenging what you are talking about.
Yeah. And for me, this actually feels very human. Also.
Yeah, sure.
This constant struggle.
That's sure. For sure. Yeah. I really respect it, but I couldn't. For me, for example, I can't do this for long. Yeah. That's nice, yeah. So, I really have to say, maybe very often it's hard to stop, or improvisation always, when you don't stop, it can be boring. Maybe I don't want to
But
bore
also,
you.
I think to see the ending is very important.